Hey Digidestin, and welcome to another deck profile, this time on everyone's favorite antagonist who desperately needs therapy, Menoa Bellucci. If you've seen the movie, then you know that's absolutely a true statement, and if you haven't seen the movie, don't worry, you're not really missing out on much. But this video isn't about the movie, it's about the Eosmon deck. And I do want you all to know I love this deck a lot, and when it actually first came out in BT6, I did have it built and was a little bit sort of disappointed with how little power it felt it had. And then we got the promo Morphomon, and it was slightly better. And then this set came out, BT-17 Secret Crisis, and we got a lot of fun new stuff for the deck. And guys, I'm so happy with it. It's kind of insane how fun it is to kind of be able to go to toe-to-toe with some of the better decks in this format. And it's a really nice surprise for some people who are not quite sure what Eosmon does. So without further ado, let's get into this. Our eggs, starting off, are going to be the 4 of Argomon from BT2, which, by the way, also has a pretty neat deck in this format. We're calling this our villain era, and we are back. So the deck is actually kind of memory hungry, so getting a 1 extra memory whenever you unsuspend during your unsuspend phase is really nice. You could also run the Terriermon from the EX5 for extra DP boost, because it does count for all turns, which means that if you're into your level 5 Eosmons, which we'll get into later, it makes you less susceptible to Crimson Blazes and getting a full board deletion. But I just really like Argomon because I like having memory. And speaking of memory, the first of our rookies, I know it's not a Morphomon, but it is 2 of the blocker memory Tamermons, the Terriermons. Whoops. And the reason that I actually chose these 2 was they actually replaced Argomon in this deck. I know, what a wild concept. The reason why is I actually really value having the chance to evolve over some level 3 sometimes, and with Argomon, you actually don't get a lot of that. Despite the fact that this deck is mostly a white-based Digimon, Argomon can't actually be evolved on top of for the most part. Also, we're in a format where there's a lot of memory gain by not Tamer effects, so being able to just drop either a Terriermon down or second Terriermon down and your opponent not having a way to delete them makes it really nice to have them, to give them a target so they're not really looking at your Eosmons. And again, memory block is so nice. There's a lot of gravity crushes running around, and Tamer inherits are part of Digimon now, so they don't get memory gain if those Tamers that they have on the field suddenly become Digimon. And the other 9 rookies in this deck are, to nobody's surprise, all Morphomon. The original Morphomon from BT6 I'm actually keeping as a 1 of. It has the on deletion to look at top 5 cards to pick up a Menoa and an Eosmon. The reason I kind of cut this one was it doesn't feel like you ever really want to just, waste sort of that turn with the rookie on there. 9 times out of 10, because of the way that Digimon works inherently, when you want something to die and have an on deletion effect, you almost never get it. You actually use this card more often than not, in my opinion, to pitch for the new Menoa that you have that has an on play effect. On occasion though, you will swing with it and it will manage to get deleted in the security battle. But there's actually, it feels like there's a lot of cards lately that happen to be in security that either have effects or things will play out, but you won't actually get an on deletion on here. And honestly, this Morphomon feels outclassed by some of the newer Morphomons, one of which is going to be the new BT17 one, which has a your turn effect. The next time it would evolve into an Eosmon, you reduce that cost by 1. And this really helps with the new level 4 Eosmon because it does have a 1 digivolving effect that does take up some memory. More importantly though, the Morphomon Inheritor is really nice because whenever another Eosmon is played, not even by effect, just when you play one, so you can play for 4, you can play for 5, you can play for 6, then this specific Digimon that has the Inheritor can evo into an Eosmon with the Digimon cost reduced by 3. And for all of your level 5s, that's a free evolution at that point, which is really, really neat. But honestly, it's nice to have a rookie to evolve in the back and then just have a chance to be able to promote it and cheapen your evolution cost and actually really get a game plan going, because this inherit is sort of what makes the deck go fast. And speaking of, it's not the first time we've seen an inherit like that, because those promo Morphomons from, I think it was an anniversary update pack, so these ones have an on-play effect, right? You pay 3, you look at the top 3 cards of your library, or your deck, and then you add an Eosmon and a Menoa. And then by tucking under an Eosmon, so this part is semi-important, right? You will need another Eosmon on the field. You can play a Menoa for free from your hand. Essentially, you're paying 3 memory on its own turn to be able to play out either a 4-cost or a 3-cost Tamer. Its inherit is also sort of similar to the new Morphomon. It just has a little bit of a wording difference. So when another Eosmon is played, this Digimon may digivolve into one Eosmon in your hand with the digivolution cost reduced by 3. Important to note that if you have this Morphomon and this Morphomon both in a stack, the cost reduction is not stacking, but it can be chained. We've asked many different judge servers about like this ruling, and so if you want to double check, go ahead and do so. But this means that you can go basically into your 4 to your 5 to your 6 as long as like you have both these Morphomons underneath the level 4 essentially. Apparently you cannot stack it so that your level 5 Eosmon or your level 6 Eosmon can be a free evolution. Trust me, I have tried. So going now into our level 4s, we're only running 8 level 4s in this deck, and it feels kind of low to say that, but don't really worry about it because this deck spits out bodies like you wouldn't even believe. So obviously we're going to be running the original BT6 Eosmons. These are going to have on-play effects. You're paying 4 for an on-play effect that lets you play a Tamer, more importantly a white Tamer with a play cost of 4 or less from your hand, and then your opponent is allowed to play one. Nothing feels better than playing this for 4, playing your memory Tamer, going, hey, you can play a Tamer now, and they say, I have no Tamers in hand. In this format for BT17, it's probably going to happen a little bit less just because we are back in a semi-hybrid format, which means people will be running aggressively a lot of Tamers, but that's okay because the deck sort of wants your opponents to have Tamers. The Inherit is also really nice. It's a 1 attacking effect, so you can also play a Tamer from that. I would like you to note, though, that the Eosmon deck does specify white Tamer cards, so be very like mindful of the fact that like when you're filling out your Tamers in here, there are really good white Tamers outside of the Menoas, and we'll get to those later. But I actually really enjoy like having this card in my hand because opening hand, if you just have this and you play out a Menoa, it's actually not super terrible. And it is a target like that you can put that on-play Eosmon underneath as well. So you kind of will find ways that the 4 costs drop for an on-play feels less and less bad every time you play it. And then the new Eosmons here are going to be the BT7 ones, obviously also at a 4 of. This one has the 1 digivolving effect. It evos over Morphomon for a cost of 2, so with the new Morphomons that would be a cost of 1. The reason why that cost reduction is so important is that on your turn when you're digivolving, you can play a Tamer card with a cost of 4 or less, or a level 5 or lower Eosmon, and you can either play either one of those 2 for a play cost of 2. You will have to pay the 2 regardless, so essentially what's going to happen is you evo for 1, you're going to play something for 2 costs, so it's a 3 cost thing overall, and with the Morphomon Inherit, that would mean you can evo to a level 5 for 3, so essentially you're paying like 5 memory for a Tamer, a body, or another body. Do note that if this effect played either a Tamer or a Digimon, then your opponent is allowed to play a Tamer from their hand without paying the memory cost. As you can tell right now, there's going to be a lot of Tamer playing, and again, don't worry about it. There are ways to make that feel a little less bad, and I promise you as well that the look on your opponent's face every time you say, hey, since I did this, you can play a Tamer, there is going to be a lot of confusion from them, and the payoff on it is honestly just so hilarious sometimes. So now onto our level 5s, which actually kind of feel like the meat of the deck in all honesty. So I'm actually going to start off with the new BT7 Eosmons. These are going to be only out of 4 of, and these are going to have an on-play and a when digivolving effect. Note that it can also just evo over a level 4 Eosmon for a cost of 3. There are no digivolution like things over here. Unlike the other older Eosmons. So this one has an on-play and one digivolving effect. Your opponent can play a Tamer from their hand without paying the cost. If they don't play one, then you are allowed to play a white Tamer cost with cost 4 or less from your hand without paying the cost. And this final part is important, right? Then you de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon for every 2 Tamers. So if they don't play a Tamer, you can play one. If they play a Tamer, you can't play one, but regardless of whether or not somebody plays a Tamer, for every 2 Tamers on the field, there is going to be a Digimon that's going to get de-digivolved. So they can either contribute to an extra digivolution on their side, or they can let you play a Tamer in your hand, and hopefully you have one at that point. But again, regardless of what's going to happen, you are going to be able to de-digivolve something, hopefully. Importantly, the Eosmon from this set and the Eosmon from and the level 4 Eosmon from the set both have the same Inherit, and it says when an opponent's Digimon attacks, you can switch the target to one of your Eosmon. The Eosmon doesn't have to be suspended, as you can just redirect the attack straight into that. So it is a nice way of attack redirection. It helps with Coralmons that let your opponents gain an extra draw off of your security. So it basically means that if they want to swing with anything that has that sort of like inherent, that you can at least punish them for it by having a bigger body on the field. And then our next set of level 5s. This is going to be the original Eosmon from BT6, which actually has a stipulation of you can have up to 50 copies of this card in the deck. So we're going to abuse that a little bit and go for 8 copies of it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so it is going to be 8 copies of this particular Eosmon. It can evo over on top of a white or on top of a green, which is very nice as well to have. And it has a 1 attacking effect. So when you attack, you can play a level 5 or lower Eosmon from your hand without paying the cost. You could either play another one of these, which 85% of the time you'll probably have another one in your hand, so you can at least play it out. Or you can play any one of the I prefer either having the new level 5 or having the old level 4. So either one of those that will have an on-play effect Eosmon are probably the ones that you'll be wanting to go for. But obviously, depending on your hand, that might not be possible. The inherent for this one is on your turn, this Digimon gets plus 1000 DP. And honestly, it's just a nice extra boost because there are some really crazy ways that this deck can get DP boosted. But yeah, so 8 of these, it's really nice to just have because you can keep potentially just like chaining them, essentially, like, right, you have a level 5 that you can swing with. If you have like that stack of that Morphomon, you can evo into another one, swing with like one of them, and then all of a sudden you'll have like 3 bodies on the field for the price, 4 bodies on the field for the price of 2 swings. And it's really kind of neat. I also just adore this art. I love the campaign rare art so much. I was so happy that these were really cheap when they came out because I absolutely picked up like 13 to 15 of them. They're so nice. People didn't want them and I went, give me your Eosmons, please. Speaking of, we are going to be going into the BT17 Eosmon as the first part of our level 6s. So this one is super neat. I am so happy that we got this Eosmon. It made the deck so fun. The nice part is it does evo for a cost of 4, so that means with the Morphomon reduction, it's a cost of 1 evolution, which is why I actually really appreciate the Argomon eggs. The extra memory all the time is going to be so necessary. This has a 1 Digivolve 1 attacking effect. You can play a level 5 or lower Eosmon from your hand without paying the cost. And then all turns, whenever one of your Eosmon is played. Again, not either by an effect or any way at all, just by playing it. So you can pay the 5, you can pay the 4, you can pay the 6 for it. It doesn't matter. Then you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon whose DP is equal to or less than that Digimon played. So normally you've been thinking, oh man, that means like at most I can delete a 6k, right? No. Remember what we talked about earlier about Tamers and stuff? So on your turn, this Eosmon gives all of your Eosmon plus 1000 DP for every Tamer on the field. That means including your opponent's Tamers. So you could just be like, absolutely just don't have any Eosmon, right? That's totally fine. But if your opponent has been playing Tamers at the same time, like anytime you've been allowing them to, or on their own volition, they've been pumping up your Eosmon for your turn. And it is such a delight to just tell them, oh yeah, so this is 6,000, but I'm going to add all of my Tamers, and then I'll add all of yours. Heads up, when you do that, they will probably take the card off the stack, take a look at it, and be like, oh, okay, I guess. So just a heads up, it's very neat and very fun to be able to do that. You can also stack it in a way where when you play this level 5 Eosmon off of this level 6 Eosmon, you can de-digivolve something first. So if you think that you don't have enough boost of power to delete something on your opponent's field, and you have this new level 5 Eosmon in your hand, play that one first, de-digivolve something, and hey, if they play a Tamer, you get an extra DP boost from that too. So honestly, it's sort of a win-win situation for you, right? And then after those 4 Eosmon, I'm actually choosing to run 2 of the original Eosmon. I'm actually not running any of the rare ones from this set. I find that despite the fact that it has that on-deletion effect, it feels like it's too passive in those turns. It's fine if you can get that Eosmon and this level 6 Eosmon on the field and then just redirect the attack to the one that has an on-deletion effect. But for me, that's a little bit too much setup that I would require. It's a weird statement to make, I know, especially in a deck that does already have a lot of setup. But I really like this Eosmon because it feels like a really neat board wipe, or sort of like a board management. So when digivolving, for every tamer on the field, so including yours and including your opponents, you can place an Eosmon that's level 5 or lower from your trash at the top of this Digimon's sources. So you're okay if your Eosmons get, either you redirect the attacks or that they get deleted. Because if you place 2 or more Digimon underneath this Eosmon this way, you delete one of your opponent's Digimon. And that's a really kind of niche way to get rid of some of like their peskier, like high DP Digimon if there's not enough tamers on the field, or just you're just short 1 or 2 DP. And then on your turn, for every 3 sources underneath this Digimon, you get a security attack +1. In one of the testing games that I had, this Eosmon was singing for like, I think 37,000 DP for like 4 checks. It was really neat. I have a picture of it, and I'm commemorating it because it's just fun. But it's a body that they have to get rid of, and sometimes it's really difficult because 13,000 DP gets over a lot of Digimon that are level 5 possibly, and you can stack these inherits. So either any one of the level 4 or level 5, the one that lets you redirect, you can stack them underneath, and you can consume them once per turn, so you can always keep redirecting them to a 13,000 DP Eosmon, which honestly, kind of neat for them to go, alright, I'm going to attack security, like, alright, direct it to this Eosmon. And if you have all of them underneath, that's like 8 chances of redirection. However, no green deck can, or I guess no green/white deck can be kind of complete without sort of a failsafe, and our failsafe in this case is going to be Quartzmon. Quartzmon does feel a little bit easier every format to kind of navigate around, but in this case, people are playing tamers. We're playing bodies like crazy. We are dropping Eosmon either through this new level 6 or like the old level 5, and Quartzmon eats that stuff up, right? So if you're not familiar with Quartzmon, I am jealous that you did not have to play it in the format when it originally came out, but essentially, yeah, that's a hefty evolution cost. However, you suspend everything on the field, then you gain back memory for every 2 suspended Digimon and Tamers. All turns, as long as like this Quartzmon is on the field, nothing unsuspends, including your own stuff, but that's fine because on the attack, for every 5 things that are suspended, you can trash the top card of your opponent's security, and on the attack, you can suspend something of theirs that isn't already suspended. So when you're spinning out bodies like crazy here with this Eosmon stuff, this Quartzmon gets better and better, and it won't have protection unlike your Eosmons, but this is sometimes a really nice way to close out the game, or at least stall until you have a chance to build up in the back. But in this particular deck, I think Quartzmon is still a very good Digimon to have. And now we're on to our Tamers. So, in all honesty, this is actually going to get cut, most likely, the Lui. Honestly, just because it doesn't really feel like it affords me as much value as I thought it would. Sure, I can leave all the Morphomons in the back, and then when I raise them, I can get the memory. However, for me, I'm actually looking at Hokuto Amanakawa, which is going to be from RBO1. It's 2-cost Tamer that says at the start of your turn, if your opponent has 3 or more Tamers, you gain a memory, and then if they play a Digimon, by suspending it, if it's level 5 or, if it's level 4 or higher, you gain a memory. If it's level 3, you draw a card. Lui's still nice. Just because I've been hit in security before to push up a Terriermon, and the Terriermon has actually saved my butt for a turn. But for me, in this deck particular, it doesn't feel like it offers as much value as it used to. And I'm not saying that it's just because I don't have the Ukamons. I'm just saying it because it feels like it's not doing what I want in the deck, and that's to generate more memory, and this is a stipulative of this has a stipulation of a Digimon coming out of raising. So you can run the Luis if you'd like. 80% chance for me that I'm actually going to be cutting it out and either replacing it with that the Hokuto Amanakawa or a Hina, which would have been the replacement for what the old Mat and Tai would have been in this deck, but most likely going to get cut for a different white Tamer. And it's nice that we have options for that now, because we didn't have those options before. But can't talk about white Tamers without talking about everyone's favorite 3-cost white Tamer, which is Digimon Emperor. Guys, this card has been going so crazy lately. If you've been playing against Numemon for any reason, you know exactly why. Digimon Emperor is great when one of your opponent's Digimon moves from the raising to the battlefield. They lose 2 memory. This interrupts any sort of start of main phase triggers. It won't interrupt Ukamon's search, and it won't interrupt the chance for them to get that memory back when the Digimon leaves raising. However, it will make their memory have to be a little bit more managed. So I'm running this as a 2 of. maybe 3. I don't know. Lui is being a shapeshifter right now. He's looking like a bunch of different tamers that I want to put in this, but at minimum of 2 of Digimon Emperor. It's just so nice because it gets around memory tamers. You form memory on arrays if you have both of them out. It stalls out a lot of people's game plans because now they're going to be forced to evolve in the back when they didn't want to before, just to get some value out of their egg hatching area. And then all turns, when an opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon is deleted, you can suspend this to draw 1. That is probably the trigger that people forget the most. Drawing is so important in this game sometimes, and I would say get into the habit of trying to do that. But more importantly, that raising where they lose 2 memory, it is great. I love seeing it happen. Having 2 of these and just dropping them and not caring after that is wonderful. Your opponent will think you're a bully, and that's fine because we are an antagonist deck. We have the Digimon Emperor and we have Menoa Bellucci's, right? So we're not here to play nice. We're here to swarm the board and win games. Speaking of Menoas, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 Menoas that we're playing. These are going to be the last of the cards in the deck. So obviously we're going to be running 4 of the Memory Tamer Menoas. Yeah, it might seem excessive to run 4 of Memory Tamer, but the nice thing about this Menoa is on your turn, whenever you play an Eosmon, again, not by effect, but just when you play an Eosmon, you can suspend her. You look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you either pick up a Tamer or an Eosmon. Can't pick up Morphomons for some reason, and I don't know why, but you can't pick up Morphomons. However, this can keep your Eosmon chain going, which is nice. It's a great way to filter your deck. And on your opponent's turn, if you have an Eosmon in play, which, crazy, yeah. If you have an Eosmon in play, your opponent's tamers don't unsuspend. It is so neat. It's so satisfying to go and pass the turn and they are unsuspend. You're like, no, those don't unsuspend because of the Menoa. Tamer interaction is a little bit more frequent now than it was back in BT8. However, that's why we're running 4 copies. So in case you need to delete one of these copies of Menoa's, guess what? She's back, baby. So it's fun because there's ways to de-digivolve your opponent's hybrid Digimon, and so if they've attacked with it, then those tamers don't unsuspend now. They get less value off of them. They're just sitting there. So I genuinely really love this card. I think it's a great way to filter. It's a great way to just stall out your opponent. I've had a game where somebody played their Digimon Emperors, suspended them, and just could not get any value for the rest of the game off of them. So I honestly think she is a 4 of. You might see some listeners that they're running out of the 3 of. Mileage may vary on that one. It is up to you. I personally just love having the chance to filter, and I think it is the most important part of this. It was one of the more important parts of this deck to be able to find those pieces as fast as possible because we don't have a lot of really great ways to make our play costs any cheaper. The last Menoas in this deck are going to be the new Menoa from BT17. These are 3-drop Menoas, and I love that we got this sort of effect for this Eosmon deck. So on play, you can pitch either a Morphomon. See, she cares about Morphomon, but you either pitch a Morphomon or a Digimon with Eosmon in its name to draw 2 cards. And the chance to fix your hand that way or to get rid of something in your hand that you don't want to play in that moment is so nice, and it makes playing multiple copies of this feel so much better. Just because you're okay pitching one of these because you know that you have 7 more copies potentially in the deck. It also helps fill your trash up for this Eosmon. And all of turns, while you have an Eosmon in play, so the difference between these 2 Menoas is this Menoa is on the 4-drop Menoa is only on your opponent's turn. New Menoa is all turns. While you have an Eosmon in play, your opponent's tamers don't get their on-play effects. Now, against hybrids, again, we're focusing on that mostly because we are in BT17 release windows, and there's not a lot of on-plays for those hybrid tamers. However, for things like Davis, which on-play looks at the top 3 cards of your deck, and you add a green or you add a green and a blue Digimon in there, they don't get that search. They don't get that extra dig, and that makes such a huge difference in their game plan a lot of times, right? You want your on-plays. You want to be able to search. You want to be able to do stuff with your tamers, and this stops that. It's not even just a stipulative of like you have to suspend it. It's just there. The nice thing too, on your opponent's turn, when one of your Eosmon would leave the battlefield, so not even just deleted, just would leave the battle, either by bounce, either by bottom decking, anything like that, then you can sacrifice one of your other Eosmon to prevent that deletion. So what this means is you can essentially save one of your giant stacks of Eosmon to protect the other one. And honestly, there are going to be games where like you're okay with a level 6 getting like either deleted just because you have a chance to build up again with your level 5s, but this gives us some form of protection that we didn't really have before. Most importantly, it's so much fun to hit a Tamer in security and say, no, you didn't get on plays. And between these two Menoas, you actually can kind of lock out Imperial a lot of the time just because they'll suspend their Ken and Davis and not realize that they can't unsuspend it unless they clear your board of Eosmons. So honestly, this deck feels pretty comfortable right now for me. I'm going through some more testing with it. I think the most important part to note about this deck is that it is memory hungry and it doesn't have a way to get rid of floodgates. And that is, I think, the biggest issue with the Eosmon deck right now, because you're just going to have to hard play certain cards and hope that you have a way to like delete floodgates with this Eosmon. On that note, I have been tinkering with the idea of putting in a Chimeramon in this deck just because you only have the two colors, right? You have green and you have white. So at least that affords you the two colors to get over the can't play by effects floodgates. But if not, you're totally okay just evolving onto stuff and just hard playing things. Cutting Edge is just not a card for me. Cutting Edge to me is, why did it have to be 6? Why did it have to be 6 memory? That's the only issue. That's like the biggest issue I have with this, that it's 6 memory. But honestly, I think it's a fun deck. I think people are sleeping on it. I think it's gonna take people by surprise if you bring this out. You will have to explain a lot of what your deck does, because I promise you not a lot of people will know what Eosmon does. And it's such a delight to explain to them that, yeah, you can play a Tamer. No, there is no trap for it. Except that, because no matter what happens, I will de-digivolve something. And then when they realize that them playing Tamers pumps up your Anthem for this Eosmon, it gets even better. So hopefully you guys have fun with the deck. I think it's really neat. I just really loved the design. I just love the fact that we could include 50 copies of this. I did meet somebody who ran 50 copies of this card in their deck once, and they hit an Iron Fisted Onslaught in security, and I cried for them. But it's fun to see older decks get support like this, and I'm very happy with the way that the deck is. I brought it to an Evo Cup and was blessed enough to get second. De-Digivolve is just so strong. This is such a strong card. So hopefully you'll have fun, and thanks for watching.